I had spoke on the notoriety you received at an early age. I had seen you were ranked the #1 8th grader in the country by Hoop Scoop, which was basically the rankings at the time.
Yeah.
What do you think about your game caused that attention, and what was it like being 13 years old, 14 years old, #1 player in the nation? News outlets coming to your school and whatnot. What was that whole charade like at that time?
Yeah, it was like I said, looking back sometimes, I mean, it's crazy because it's a different time now, right?
Yeah.
And you talk about rankings and all of that kind of stuff. So we were dealing with that early, and that was first I think it got to that me playing at St. John's Elementary School in the Bronx, which is not far from it's right kind of adjacent or next door to Marble Hill. But I was tall for my age, so you're talking about 6'1", 6'2", whatever the case may be. And then I'm able to kind of dunk a basketball in the game. So back then it wasn't a lot of people that had seen that, right? So the 8th grader, 13 years old or 12, whatever I was, dunking a basketball in the game. So I was doing that like in CYO, and then I think the news came and they said, man, this kid is pretty good. And then mind you, I'm dunking, but then I'm averaging 40, 50 points, whatever the case may be, at that young age. And I'm tall for my age, I'm mature, I'm developed. So that drew attention in itself, and then it was just like Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 5, like just the attention built up. And I remember like it was an article in the Daily News, and back then it was like the end of the Daily News newspaper. And as soon as you open that page, like I was in it, and that was like everything. Like you know what I'm saying? If you were like one of the Knicks or something, that was like, you know what I mean? But I'm 13 years old in the back cover of the Daily News. It was like, it's crazy. So after that, things just went, got out of hand in terms of the attention. And so then I latched on to Riverside Church, AAU. I started playing with them. And then I was just back and forth CYO, Riverside in the summertime, stuff like that. And it just went from there. But I think having those news articles and those outlets, man, it just kind of led to all of that. But I think back then, even for me, it was wild, because now I'm going to CYO games, I'm signing autographs, and I'm 12 years old, 13 years old. So it was just, once again, looking back, it was it was kind of bugged out, man. But
was any part of it like annoying, or did you maybe, looking back on it, did you ever start feeling yourself maybe more than you probably should have, or was there basically anything that might you look back on it and be like, man, that was a negative to that, or was it all uphill?
I think I always look at stuff like as a positive. I think it was the people around me that obviously kept me humble. Like I said, my godfather, having he's around there. He's like, yo, I'm dealing with pros. You ain't nobody yet. So keeping me humble. And then mom's always keeping my mind on the academics. Like this, if you break your leg tomorrow, what do we have? So it was just people in my life, man, that kept me humble. But I would never take away that experience, man. It was dope. It was good to go through, and like I said, even talking about it now, it just brings back memories, man. So I could reminisce, and the people that were around, especially back then and all that. I mean, we could laugh and joke and talk about and tell those stories, man. So I think it was always a positive, man, because anytime you get, what do they say? Any publicity is good publicity, even if it's negative, right? So it's just, you get your name out there, and then I think it leads to good things if you continue to work.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean?
What was it like getting invited to the ABCD camp and being the youngest invitee at the time to the camp?
Yeah, no, that was crazy in itself, man, because there were so many great players that got invited to that camp. Over the years up until I went, and back then I was kind of watching a lot of high school basketball and college basketball anyway. So you had names like Jason Kidd and Paul Pierce and guys like that, and I'm at the camp with these guys, and I'm just looking, I'm like, wow, this is crazy. But we went out there Probably 10 guys from New York went out there. It was in California. At that one was in California.
Okay.
So we flew out there. It was like 10 of us. But it was a crazy experience, man, because I can remember trying to. My biggest thing was they gave us these locks. To put our jerseys and sneakers and stuff in. I couldn't, like, it was before I got to high school, right? Yeah. So I didn't even know how to work the lock. And they're like, young fella, you got to do this, 2 to the right. So I'm just like, oh, man. So that was like the anxiety. It wasn't even on the court. It was like the extra, the other stuff I had to go through that was making me nervous, man. But great experience. I got to really bond with, guys like Kareem Reed and Felipe Lopez and, guys like that at the time that were New York City
royalty.
Yeah. Well, now they royalty, but they were, we were coming up together back then.
Yeah.
I was probably the youngest.
Right.
But, those guys
were what, two classes ahead of you?
2, yeah.
Got you.
Yeah. But I could remember, like a Felipe being like the #1 player at the time. And, he's taking me under his wing and like, yo, you got to do this and you got to and I talk to those guys to this day, man. But the experience in itself, man, allowed me to bond with a lot of New York City guys. So then when I got back home, they realized like, who I was and you know what I'm saying, and just trying to help each other grow, work out together, stuff like that, and just being, back then we sticking together as New York City. Right? Yeah. I think it's getting a little better now in terms of that, but just bonding and building with those guys, man. I think that was the thing I could take from that, because there was so much, there was so many of us, but then kind of trying to represent, age-wise. I'm a freshman. This one's a sophomore. This one's a junior. So just trying to build and represent New York City. I think that was the main thing back then for me. Trying to, I'm out there. I flew out there, so I got to represent where I come from. Yeah.
For sure. So now you wrapping up 8th grade and you headed to high school. What made you decide to attend Mount St. Michael's? Because I'm pretty sure being the #1 8th grader in the land, you had all of the Catholic schools in the city wanting your services, and Mount didn't have the reputation that a St. Ray's or a Rice had. No disrespect, still doesn't have that reputation. So what made you decide, man, I'm gonna go over here and do this?
Yeah, I mean, it was, and back then, man, it was crazy, man, because like I said, I had people in my life that were, instrumental in terms of things besides basketball. Like I said, my mother, academics, my godfather, just being a good person, being a good citizen, and all that kind of stuff. But and no slight to any other of those programs, but the focus on me when I was coming out, man, was we want to develop this student athlete, right? So Mount, academically,
Mount is stronger in that department.
They were amazing, right? So yeah. So when I took the visit, and toured the campus and stuff like that, I just fell in love with it being a campus environment, biggest gym in the city. Like, it just was the other stuff. And I think back then I looked at it like I could make this home, I could make something happen. And just kind of doing my own thing, distinguishing myself and creating my own legacy and path. You know what I mean? And that, at the end of the day, it benefited and it worked out.
Right.
But it was a gamble.
Right.
Because now if you didn't go to Rice or St. Raymond's, you might be, thought of as, or blacklisted, and we don't want him to do that, or he's not going because he didn't go here or there. And I didn't have those issues. I'm just saying, Mount was somewhere where I wanted to like create my own. You know what I mean? I didn't necessarily want to go in and be, under anybody, or second fiddle to this one or that
just
one.
Just another name on the board.
Right. And obviously, situations work out the way they're supposed to, but I just wanted to kind of, do my own thing. And I thought that was just the best fit at the time for me. Obviously they didn't let freshmen play varsity back then either. Right. So that was kind of like, why is he going there if he can't even play varsity? So it was just, and I think even the way I am now is just like, I go against the grain a little bit and do my thing. So, it was it was a little bit of a controversy, but like I said, I think it worked out on my behalf, on my benefit. At the end of the day, it just going in initially, you know, people didn't understand it.
Right.
I think me, my family, we made those decisions, and like I said, at the time, it was the best one for me.
What ended up? What level did you end up playing? You said guys weren't playing varsity, which that was pretty much like nationwide. So what level did you end up playing?
So
freshman, JV?
I played JV at the time. So when I went in, like, you know, my freshman class, I mean, you know, the guys that played with me or ended up playing with me at varsity, they started out as freshmen. I was the only guy they moved up to JV. You know, ended up winning the city championship on JV, you know, all of that kind of stuff, and, you know, whatever. But they started me on JV, and it was one of those things where, you know, it was talked about during the season. Yo, did we move them up? And you know, I just stayed on JV.
Yeah.
Like I said, we won the city championship for the Catholic League, but you know, obviously I only had to play that 1 year on JV, where they were taking freshmen play freshmen, and you're a sophomore, you play JV, and you know. So by the time I got to varsity as a sophomore, I was the only sophomore on varsity. Yeah.